Hello, ladies and gentlemen, and welcome back to the FAF cast. Today, after a long time waiting, we're back on Setons Clutch, the holiest place of all RTS. And oh boy, do we have a game for you today, because it's gonna be all pro players. When you look at the ratings, the average rating for each team is gonna be 2,125. This is top of the crop, del de la creme. Basically the best of the best. But let's see, who do we actually have playing in here? Because on the middle part of the map, the middle position, in beautiful Cybran ACU, we have Mr. Casualty Noob playing Cybran. His teammate on the left side, on the left flank, is no one other but Mr. Farmsletier playing Grey UEF ACU, starting out with Air Factory into Air Factory. So nothing really surprising, but for his air player, it's gonna be Mr. Box playing Lemon Yellow Seraphim ACU, starting out with a rather standard air build order. And last but not least, it's gonna be no one other but Mr. Yudi playing Pink Seraphim ACU, currently known as Hachamachama. Such a nice nickname. For the top team, the middle player is gonna be Mr. Folly playing UEF ACU in Royal Blue, starting out with 4 labs coming through the causeway. This little guy will always do it. He only wants the other players to feel pain. Now, on the beach position for the top team, we have Mr. Tagada playing UEF in a bloody red ACU. For their air player, he's gonna be no one other but Mr. Feather, also known as Francias, currently known as Mr. Pluma. Honestly, screw this guy. And last but not least, on the rock position, we have Mr. Deans playing Regal Blue Aeon ACU, also known as Sneed. But let us go back to the causeway and see what the hell is actually happening in here, because we have seen Mr. Foley actually pushing in hard with a few labs. The first lab is actually gonna come into contact with the enemy hunters, but it seems like the fire is gonna be exchanged, but the good micro coming out from Mr. Foley is gonna be just enough to go and save the mech marine on half the HP, and actually, he even nearly managed to go and get rid of one of the enemy hunters. We can see more labs coming here. Now, another one fighting the enemy engineer. Is it gonna go and kill it? Nope, it's not. He's actually gonna go and focus on moving past the enemy forces. Okay, he's actually coming back to go and finish what he started. The engineer belonging to Mr. Casualty Noob is actually gonna go and die. But it seems like more and more units are actually... Okay, the hunter is actually dead. What was started before was actually finished by one more lab. As we can see, that more and more labs are actually coming through the causeway. The middle of the map is undefended, as we can see the labs trying to go and find random engineers belonging to the Mr. Farmslety and Mr. Box. We will see if they're actually gonna get reclaimed or not. Here comes the engineer belonging to Mr. Box. It's gonna go one-on-one versus the little mech marine. Okay, the mech marine is actually reclaimed. A good saving throw for Mr. Box. Unfortunately, a lot of the trees is gonna get destroyed, so the tree clumps won't be as effective in getting the energy and mass, and it seems like Mr. Rudy, or actually no, he didn't manage to go and reclaim the mech marine, as the mech marine is actually gonna go and run away in a half HP. And as such, it's free to keep on destroying more and more tree clumps belonging to Mr. Box. Oh no. The other mech marine is actually still here on the prow. Will Mr. Box react on time and actually manage to reclaim it or not? As we can see that the... Oh no. The sarcastic wonderful comes out from Mr. Box, as he knows that he just got set back quite a lot. There is also one... Oh boy. This is just bad and painful. Holy shit. He lost both expanding engineers, and as such his factories in here are actually gonna be unable to go and get the attack moves rolling, and as such all this mass and energy that is in here in the trees is gonna be unreclaimed at all. And as such the enemy air player is actually quite ahead, and I think that Mr. Feather is gonna go and try to get as much air units as possible. So basically we will see some kind of air rush from him, coming out with a few ASF followed by most likely a Strat Bomber or maybe some gunships, although I think Strat Bomber is actually gonna be better. Mr. Farmsled, yeah, taking the reclaim into his own hands, as we can see him dropping a single T1 engineer to the causeway, so he can actually get some juicy mass from the middle, because it seems like Mr. Casualty Knob is actually not being the most generous team player. As such, keeping all the mass to himself. We can see that the ACU belonging to Mr. Foley is a little bit lower than you would like, as it seems like Mr. Casualty had won the game on the middle, although it's only to be seen, considering that Mr. Foley decided to actually go and push out to the 4 laps in the very beginning of the game, and as such it's only normal that he's gonna be on a back foot, as we can see Mr. Casualty making another push through the causeway, trying to go and grab all the mass that he can from the middle. Although I'm not sure that he's actually capable of getting more from it. As such, I would rather go and try to grab all of the reclaim here and get back to a part of the causeway. Now, let's see what other players are actually trying to do. Mr. Tagadest slowly but surely scaling up. We can see him building more and more T2 Maxes. Exactly the same way as his opponent, Mr. Rudy, is playing. So nothing surprising happening at the time. So let's just look at the income. Mr. Feather, currently on 63 mass per tick. Meanwhile his opponent, Mr. Box, who got really raided early on, is only left on 42 mass per tick, which is actually really disgusting. This is bad. We can see him struggling in getting the T2 HQ out and running, so yeah, he's gonna be really behind. It seems like the play from Foley actually paid off. Still some T1 RT trying to go and harass the opponent, as Mr. Casualty Knob will have to actually go and fall back a little bit, considering that he's taking a lot of damage from the T1 Lobo artillery belonging to Mr. Foley, which is no good, but it seems like he's gonna go and push back with a bunch of Mantis, or maybe not, it's just gonna be a simple tug of war. Now Yudi's saying that he still have no navy, and yes, that is true, as we can actually see him going for the T2 Nota spam, so hopefully it will work out. We'll see if Mr. Farmsled is actually capable of supporting him good enough to deal some considerable damage to the opponents. And yes, it seems like Mr. Feather is really trying his best to go and for the fast T3 HQ. Yep, that's a really hard push in here, because the T3 HQ is nearly halfway done. There is not much T2 Maxes being built by Mr. Feather, but that's only calculated, as he's gonna go hard for the air superiority fighters, and then he will go and try to push in with the Strat Bombers. Meanwhile, on the causeway we can see that Mr. Casualty Knob had enough. He seems to be had enough, and he's gonna go and try to push back, but I'm not sure if it's actually gonna go and work out, because Mr. Foley had a gun upgrade on his ACU, and as such the Mantis are gonna be nowhere enough to actually go and push in. As we can see, the ACU dealing massive damage to the incoming forces. An overcharge takes care of a single Mantis in single shot. And as such, Mr. Casualty Noob will actually have to go and fall back, because he's not gonna be capable of defending this spot in here. But here comes the Notas belonging to Mr. Yudi. We can see them slowly beelining through the middle of the causeway. Or maybe not, he's gonna actually go for his own opponent, Mr. Sneed. Yes, we can see him. He will most likely try to go and deal some damage to the T2 Maxes in here. Mr. Casualty Nuke just Control K. Actually, no, he didn't Control K, he just got killed by Mr. Foley on the causeway. But we have other stuff actually happening, as there is an airfight brewing in, as we can see Mr. Yudi trying to deal as much damage as he can to the enemy air player. He's gonna go and clear out the sky from the interceptor belonging to Mr. Steen, but the forces coming from Mr. Tagada are actually seems like they're gonna get a better... Yeah, this is actually way better start for him, and as such it seems like Mr. Yudi is actually gonna lose this airfight. But here comes the support from Mr. Farmslat, the interceptor gifted to Yudi, and it seems like it might actually still be salvaged, the airfight I mean. As we can see it happening, but there is way more units coming up from the bottom team, and as such, it seems like the airfight is actually gonna be won by them, but here comes the swift wins from Mr. Sneed. It's gonna be hard to say who's gonna win even more so, as there is a T2 flag coming up to Mr. Sneed in here, but it seems that the airfight was won by Mr. Yudi. And as such, he's now free to go and harass the T2 Maxes belonging to the other players, as we can see Foley losing one of his Maxes. And now the Notas are beelining for one more, but here comes the ASF from Mr. Feather. Like I said, he's gonna go all in on the air superiority. Whew. I didn't cast in a long time and it's actually showing. But yeah, with the Air Force this big, compared to his enemy who doesn't even have the first T3 pigeon out, Mr. Feather is actually most likely gonna go for the one or two more ASF, and then he will see a single Strat Bomber coming up from here. But coming back to the middle of the map, we can see that Mr. Foley is pushing in harder and harder, and this single T2 PD is actually being crushed by the difference in the height of the terrain. As such, it's not doing damage at all. We can see it's shooting the ground, and as such, Mr. Foley is capable of dealing shortly and quite simply with this T2 Cerberus, who didn't manage to kill a single T1 unit, which is just sad. But the T3 ACU just finished for Mr. Farmslat, so we will see where is it gonna drop. The T2 transport is here and ready to roll. So yes, it's gonna be a fun to see what he will do. Is he gonna drop it here on the middle to go and secure the causeway? Or maybe it's gonna be some kind of T3 drop on the beach somewhere here on this expansion, or he even maybe will go and dare to drop the air player. Okay, here comes the Janus from Mr. Tagada, trying to deal as much damage as possible to the units belonging to Farmslat here. As we can see, dropping more and more napalm, killing single T1 engineers in force. But the ASF belonging to Mr. Feather are actually gonna go and fly over the enemy Sam, which is not the best idea, but at the very least he now knows that the enemy have no ASF at all, which is quite sad for the bottom team. Here comes the airfight, but it seems like I wouldn't really take it, because if Mr. Yudi actually starts using his interceptors, he can still go and kill off a lot of this. Yep, first ASF is down, and more are under fire. Another one down. The third one is actually gonna fall down. We will see if fourth one is actually gonna die or not. ASF coming out from Mr. Box, but it seems like this airfight is still gonna be won by the top team, as there is just way too many ASF and interceptors in here. Not to say there are actually a few Januses coming out from Mr. Tagada. We can see damage being done to the T1 pigeons belonging to Mr. Hachamacha, also known as Yudi, and as such it seems like this is actually not so good. There is also even more T2 gunships coming up from Mr. Steed, and they're saying that Mr. Yudi is not gonna be happy today, because everyone is trying to go and make him pay. You can see the T2 mechs actually being under fire by the T2 gunships, the Spectres belonging to Mr. Sneed, as more and more T2 Maxes are actually falling victim to the top team. But worry not, because it seems like the T3 ACU belonging to Mr. Farmslat is on the field. The T3 com drop is on the way. We can see the DM1 plasma cannons being built fast and swiftly by Mr. Wheelie. And as such, this little expansion belonging to Mr. Tagada is gonna be no more. There is just not enough build power to actually go and contest anything here. So yep, this is actually quite a pickle for Mr. Tagada, who have nothing to defend from it. And here comes the mercies belonging to Mr. Feather. Although I'm not sure if it's actually gonna work out, the Strat Bomber is also on the way. But Mr. Wheelie, also known as Farmslet, is already building his own Sam Launcher, and as such, he should be more or less capable of defending himself from the oncoming onslaught from the air units. We can see it firing away, trying to go and deal damage to the enemy air force. As Mr. Feather will have to go and watch out, because this single Sam is enough to defend this ACU for now. Oh no! Such a pain! The freshly built T2 children actually got sniped by a few Lobos who got built by the already dead T1 factory belonging to Mr. Tagada. But here comes the mercies. We'll see if they're actually gonna go and snipe the ACU belonging. The first one is down, more coming in soon. They are dead. The Stat Bomber drops bomb and it takes a lot of damage. Oh no, the Stat Bomber is actually dead, just like that. A single mercy connects with the ACU belonging to the Wheelie, but this is not gonna be enough. The foothold is here. And as such, it seems like the ACU belonging to Mr. Wheelie is gonna be safe. For now. But Mr. Yudi is not gonna be happy at his current state of affair on his own position, as we can actually see that he's actually hard locked by the enemy navy. Although considering that the ASF count should be similar for now, 10 ASF for Mr. Feather, meanwhile Mr. Box have 9, but his ASF are actually just fine currently. Whew. Yeah, this is actually quite a pickle that Tagada got himself in. He's gonna go and start out by building a single trident here, and then maybe he's gonna go and try to get few Ravagers running around here. Although I'm not so sure if it's actually gonna go and work out. As we can see that Mr. Wheelie also have access to the T3 ACU, and as such he can get his own Ravagers up and running. Mr. Yudi deciding to go and get some T2 Torp Bombers up and running from his own T2 air factories. And as such he should be capable of defending his shore for a little while longer, seeing how there is no T2 cruisers or anything in here. But let's go back to the top part of the map where we can see Mr. Farmslet duking it out with Mr. Tagada. We can see units mingling between each other, as we can see some mech marines coming out from Mr. Farmslet to go and deal the T1 arty spam. Also, Mr. Foley just finished the T3 ACU upgrade on his own. And as such we will see what is he gonna... Oh, there is a T2 transport from Mr. Feather, and as such it seems like he will go and try to drop somewhere and deal some kind of damage. Maybe he's even gonna go and do the exact same play as Mr. Farmslet did, dropping the enemy bitch position. We can see Mr. Wheelie actually falling back. But here comes the ASF belonging to Mr. Feather, and it seems like they're gonna go and try to... Yep, he's not gonna get in, but he's gonna bait the ASF belonging to enemy team. Oh my, what a beautiful air win for the bottom team. Really beautiful play by Mr. Farmslet, yeah? Managing to actually go and bait the enemy ASF forces, although it's not looking so great. As we can see that Mr. Tagada is pushing in deeper and deeper with his own ACU, and as such it's gonna be a cutthroat game between these two players. Yes. These guys are gonna go and duke it out. Meanwhile, on the other part of the map, in the south corner, we can see that Mr. Foley actually didn't decide to go and drop somewhere in here. And as such, he's gonna go and opt for the tactical missile launcher on his ACU. Gonna go and drop him a few SAM launchers to defend himself from the enemy air forces. And then he will go and try to TML the enemy beach player. As such, Mr. Yudi is not gonna go and catch a break. But going back to the top side of the map, we can see that Mr. Tagada is dropping now as many T1 PDs as possible. But it seems unfortunate because Mr. will have a bunch of triads and bunch of DM plasma cannons ready to go and dish out the pain, and as such the build power on the T3 ACU to Mr. Tagada is just gonna be not enough. This is not gonna work out, and as such Mr. Tagada, you better get your ACU somewhere in safe. Because this is bad, this is not gonna work out, so you better just move back and regroup. Yep, run away. You just have not enough build power to actually go and do anything useful in here, and as such save your ACU. I mean, Feather, yes, you wasted all of your air because you're actually not the best of the players. You have your good plays from time to time, but otherwise you often tend to gamble too hard. And this time you lost the gamble, you lost the air control, and as such your enemies are not as good. Okay, Mr. Foley getting the ACU back on the T2 trans, and we will see if he's actually gonna go and drop it somewhere or not. Nope, he's not gonna go and drop the beach, instead he will just go and drop the ACU a little bit closer to the landmass. We can see him launching the TMLs one by one. The swift winds coming out from Mr. Sneed to go and protect his little guy. We can see the Todd bombers dropping one by one, as such the ACU belonging to Mr. Foley should be still safe. We can see it using the TML to actually go and get rid of the T2 HQ belonging to Mr. Yudi. Or at least I hope it is. Yep, there it is, the first shot connects, but Mr. Hachaman is actually should be capable of getting the TMD up and running on time before the third one connects. We can see the TML flying in here. First shot fired, and the second one, is it gonna connect? Yep. The T3 HQ is actually safe, but let's look at what is happening on the other part of the map, as Mr. Willy is still somehow hanging in here. As Mr. Tagada is actually gonna go and try to get some Ravagers to go and deal with this cheeky fire base belonging to Mr. Farmstati, but no, it's gonna be nothing but a mass donation, as Mr. Willy have his stronghold protected. Oh, and in the meantime, he also won the Navy fight quite decidedly. As we can see, there is nothing that Mr. Tagada can do to actually get back in the water. There is just way too many Navy units in here. We can also see him losing all of his core maxes, as there is a few Valiant class destroyers belonging to Mr. Farms, dealing considerable damage to the Echo infrastructure belonging to Mr. Tagada. But on the other hand, we can see Mr. Foley still dealing a lot of damage. This little T3 max belonging to Mr. Yudi is gonna go and die in a few seconds. The first shot connects, and there is one more rocket coming in here. Yep, the T3 max is dead. Bye bye. Now Mr. Feather being passive aggressive to Mr. Tagada. His toxic side finally awakening. Of course, he's not gonna use any words that can get him banned, but, you know, a little bit of passive aggressiveness. We'll see if we have to go and come out from this guy. After all, he wouldn't be perma-banned otherwise, on his first account. Now when we look at the Air Force, it seems like Mr. Feather is actually on par with Mr. Box. Yep, more or less they're on par. But when we actually look at the mass income, it is clear that he's quite behind. 175 mass per tick, compared to his opponent racking 257 mass per tick. Ah, he's quite behind. Now Mr. Foley finally manning the landing, the landfall, with his own T3 ACU. And in the same vein as Mr. Farmslad, he's gonna go and try to secure his own foothold in here with his T3 ACU. Oh well, it seems like Mr. Feather had enough of it. And the passive-aggressive guy he is just gonna go and give his own air factory to Mr. Tagada, saying, "The air is now your problem, give me your beach side and we were fine. Now go and carry me, please." I mean, the balls of this guy, the ballsack. What a bull player. Come on, you're fucking annoying. Yep, he just given all of his air units, all of his infrastructure to Mr. Tagada, saying, "Now, you go and carry this shithole of a game." Oh my, you never change, Feather, you never change. But on the south corner, we can see that Mr. Yuri is trying to go and regain the control over the navy with a big bunch of little Zuis coming out from the land factory spawn. But unfortunately, I don't think this is gonna work out because Mr. Foley have some T3 ACU in here, spamming bunch of triads and as such. No, it's not gonna work out. The T1 spam is not gonna work out like this. Yep, the frigates belonging to Mr. Foley being slowly burned away by the Janus spam from Mr. Farms. Yep, it seems like the top part of the map is in quite a pickle for the top team. But on the other hand, the south part is another pickle, but this time for the bottom team. As it seems like both teams managed to go and actually regain control over half of the map. So yeah, it's not as bad as it might actually seem for the top team, because Mr. Foley is slowly gaining more and more land control over the enemy beach, and as such, the game can still go both ways. Let's see if there is anything interesting happening, like T3 Nukes, T3 RT, or anything interesting happening from Mr. Tagada. There is a TML, but that is not gonna work out. Let's see, T3 Navy being procured by Mr. Sneed in here. And as such, it seems like we are in quite a stalemate, as the map have been firmly divided in two halves, like this. So yep, all the echo belonging to Mr. Yuri is gonna go and and now Yuri is asking for a base swap from Mr. Box. Because they wanna go and have a fair game, and yep, Mr. Buck. Well, he was actually kidding, but Mr. Box is gonna go, "No, I'm also gonna go and give you the units, my base. Everything I own belongs to you, my sweet little prince," as Mr. Yuri actually gains control over all of the Air Force and all of the infrastructure that just seconds ago belonged to Mr. Box. Holy hell, guys, could you stop doing it? This is no fun. Play it out, for fuck's sake. But yeah, we can see Foley losing more and more mexes to the onslaught of TML coming out from the cruisers belonging to Mr. Farmsled here. As we can see. Now the navy control on the Setons catch is actually quite important. Poor Box will now have to somehow go and deal with the remnants of the base that once belonged to Mr. Yudi, as now the ACU belonging to Mr. Foley is now the problem for Mr. Box. Yep, it's not gonna be a fun time, but Mr. Yudi actually decided to go and get a T4 experimental Etota on the field, so he can actually go and protect himself from the land incursion coming out from Mr. Foley, and maybe soon enough even from Mr. Sneed, considering that he have the navy control. And as such, he can also now go and put some economy into getting the foothold on this little landmass here, so he can start spamming so T1 units or something in here to be an even bigger pain in the ass for the bottom team. So come on, Mr. Sneed, I wanna see what will be your move, but it seems it's gonna be none of the latter, as he's gonna go for the T3 nuke subs. The nuclear warfare option is the one he chooses from. Okay, Galactic Colossus being built by Mr. Tagada, as he will go and say, no, I wanna go and get rid of this little base, because nobody likes having enemy ACU on your own part of the map. So yeah, Mr. Tagada saying, no, farms, this is enough. You have had your happy times in here on this little expansion, but no, I'm gonna go and make sure that I can evict you with some Galactic Colossus that is being built currently in the airbase. But now, let's go back and see if the chicken is actually finished. Nope, not yet, but it's soon enough it's gonna be finished, and as such Mr. Foley and Mr. Sneed will have to go and fall back a little bit, as it seems like Foley is actually taking a walk to some other part of the map. Yep, bottom plate are actually having a scuffle. Whose chicken it is, because moments ago Box was asking for it to be actually finished, and Mr. Feather just died like this because he's actually apparently had enough of this game, even though it... I mean, the way this game actually goes is his own fault, and as such he shouldn't take the easy way out and suicide, but hey, that's what he's gonna go and do because it's Feather. Is gonna be a pain in the ass for both teams. Never for one, always for both. Here comes a big push from Mr. Tagada, as we can see. I mean, not Tagada, but Mr. Farmslet, yeah? As we can see a big army coming closer and closer to the base belonging to Mr. Tagada, or actually I should say the remnants of the base. We can see some rockets flying in the air as the cruisers are still dealing a lot of damage. TMD being built by Mr. Tagada, but it's not gonna be enough, as we can see. The TMD positions falling one by one. And Mr. Foley is actually a little bit too close for comfort. The chicken belonging to Mr. Yudi is coming closer and closer. He's actually under attack by the T2 PDs too, and it seems like it's not gonna be enough. He's reacting way too late, and as such the ACU belonging to Mr. Foley is gonna make the dance of the death as he goes kaboom, baby! The ACU belonging to Foley explodes in a beautiful thermonuclear explosion. Oh well, that was a bad move from him. Although it seems like he still dealt quite a lot of damage with his T3. TML back, seeing there is no T3 Maxes or T2 Maxes left alone in the middle base belonging to Mr. Farmslet, yeah? And now it is Mr. Sneed that will have to go and deal with this Itota here. More and more mass being... Oh, not the best flight by Mr. Tagada, trying to go and get rid of the T2 transports belonging to Mr. Yudi. But the reality is that the ACU is long gone. It already landed here and are trying to go and secure the beach position for the top team, as it seems like the... Wait, this one? Shouldn't it be already... Okay, no, never mind, that is the another one, because the gun... not gun carrier, but Galactic Colossus is actually long finished ago, and it's closer and closer, slowly coming to go and dish out pay into the top team. I mean to the bottom team, to Mr. Yudi and Mr. Wheelie, as they will have to somehow try and get out from this pickle, because more and more forces are coming in here from Mr. Tagada, who have way more mass here. As we can see, not only T3 Titans playing out here, duking it out with the enemy T1 units belonging to Mr. Farmstead here. But here comes the Galactic Colossus, and I'm really unsure if they can actually protect themselves, as Mr. Mr. Yudi and Mr. Farmstead are actually trying to go and set up some Ravagers in here. But the doom is coming closer and closer. The Galactic Colossus is coming in here. Mr. Farms asking for the ASF removal from Mr. Yudi, because actually he should be capable of winning the airfight quite easily. 180 ASF for Mr. Yudi, meanwhile Mr. Tagada at only 120. And as such he will have to actually watch out. There's a strat bomber coming out from him, from Mr. Tagada, as he's gonna go and try to snipe the enemy. Oh boy, this is actually gonna be really close. Yes, the TML are actually gonna fly and try to intercept the enemy Galactic Colossus, but it seems like there is actually just enough units and PDs in here. But Mr. Yudi saying, no, I'm gonna go and run away. Mr. Farmstead asking for more energy, as we can see his T2 shields blinking more and more. There is a bunch of Ravagers spewing fire at the enemy Galactic Colossus belonging to Mr. Taggart, as the Galactic Colossus is taking more and more fire, dropping below 3k HP, 20k HP, and it seems like the wheelie is actually somehow gonna go and stay alive. As the GC is gonna go and drop below 10k HP again, and kaboom! There goes the Galactic Colossus. As it seems like Yudi is just gonna say, okay, now time to steal the reclaim. Imagine the balls on this guy. The moment he sees the Galactic Colossus actually inch closer and closer to the position belonging to Mr. Farmstead, yeah, he just takes up his ACU in a T2 trance, drop him in the water, safe from the Galactic Colossus, saying, no, Mr. Farmstead, it's you who will go and deal with it. And the moment the threat is gone, it's like, nope, I'm coming back to go and steal the reclaim. Like, imagine the balls of this guy, like, holy hell, Yodi, you are one hell of a cunt. But yeah, Mr. Box still firmly standing his ground in here, making sure that Mr. Sneed can no longer gain any more advantage in here. Making sure that his T1 Zooey spam is gonna go and protect the beach side. But let's go and take a look if there is any kind of
strategic launch detected.
Yes, I was asking if there is any kind of nukes or anything, but as we actually remember, Mr. Sneed was building the T3 nuke submarines. And well, here comes the first nuke. We will see if it's actually gonna go and connect or not. The SMD is here and it actually manages to go and protect the base belonging to Mr. Hachama. Just in time, it barely finished the SM. Oh boy, that was so close. No wonder Mr. Yudi just wrote LOL on the chat, because this was way too close for comfort. Because this SMD was barely done with its rocket. Oh boy. Holy hell, this is just way too close. Mr. Tagada yet again trying to go and push in with the land force. We can see more and more Titans coming in close, dancing along the battle line, trying to go and put a dent in the enemy forces. Feather actually saying kill medal with it, but what is he speaking about? What is he speaking? The Thor bombers and Mr. Box are gonna do nothing at all in here, but do they have some experimental or something? No, this is a chicken belonging to Mr. Yuli, but it seems like Mr. Feather. Oh yeah, there is one more GC coming in here. But I'm afraid if the first one didn't work out, the second is also actually not gonna work out, so Mr. Tagada, this is not the best idea, even more so when you have no air support. Actually, no, never mind. You have the air support, and as such, the gunships belonging to Mr. Wheeler are actually gonna go and die just like this. But still you have watch out because there is a lot of T2 skyboxers in here in the gallant unit mix belonging to Mr. Farmstead, and as such your ASF are not as safe as you would actually think. The fat boy for Mr. Willy is actually finished too, and as such the Titans and GC will simply have to go and fall back. Yep, there they go, slowly falling back one by one. But let's see what is happening on the other theaters of war. Okay, here is the Galactic Colossus for Mr. Sneed. Finished under the water, so I don't think they're actually... Okay, Mr. Box saying he will actually go and get the TP out. Although I'm not sure if it's actually gonna work out. But let's see. Any kind of nuke launchers for Mr. Tagada or anything interesting like that? Oh, pardon me for that, I didn't mean to click it. Nope, I don't see any nuke launchers. There is the SMD coming out from him. Let's see what Mr. Sneed have in hand here. Also, nothing in here. No nukes, no T3 RT, just spamming T3 Sakus. Because RAS ACUs for the win. Oh no. It seems like Mr. Yudi actually have nothing to defend from the Galactic Colossus, which can come to bite him in the arse, as T1 bombers are actually not gonna be enough, because we can see a lot of T2 flak in here. The Nota's gonna go and drop the payload on the enemy flag, making a short work out of them, but it's still not gonna be enough. As you can see, the Galactic Colossus is still gonna be inching closer and closer. Step by step, the chicken... Where is the chicken? The chicken is here and it's not gonna be on time. I'm afraid that the SMD might actually go and die to the Galactic Colossus. The Ahwas are gonna go and drop a single bomb dealing 10k damage to the enemy Galactic Colossus. Oh boy! This is looking quite bad for the South team. Oh no, the SMD is gone. Just like this and...
Strategic launch detected.
And here comes one more strategic launch from the strategic missile submarines belonging to Mr. Sneed. The GC is gonna go and die to the chicken at this moment, but it's too late. Too late and not enough, as we can see the nuke slowly arcing its way to the enemy airbase. And soon enough, this grid is gonna be no more. Kaboom, baby. We can see everything going up in flames, as a thermonuclear explosion just blows everything out to the dust. It seems like Mr. Yudi actually won one more airfight where Mr. Steen was trying to go and get rid of the enemy Ahwasa. And this is the last chance. Nothing else. This single Ahwasa is everything that this game is actually raining on. Will it save the South team or not? Can it actually deal lasting damage to the enemy team? Or can it not? We have two fat boys for Mr. Farmstead, trying to go and put a dent in the enemy force and the firebase belonging to Mr. Tagada. But I'm unsure if this is gonna be enough. We can see both air players dancing around, trying to make sure that the Ahwasa stays out of the window. Yudi trying to go and protect it. Mr. Tagada looking for the way to go and get rid of it.
Strategic launch.
Oh no, and here comes the one more nuke from Mr. Sneed. It seems like the nuclear option was the right choice after all, as the nuke is beelining for the base belonging to Mr. Farmstead. Does he have the SMD? It's minute 37, but he still doesn't have the SMD. Oh boy! Oh boy, it seems like this is gonna be the GG. We can see the Ahwasa falling down way back in the distance as the nuclear warhead actually connects and boom! GG coming out from Mr. Farmsletia. As all the other players are actually dying slowly as they all control K. We can see the nuclear explosion happening on the beach side. On the top side, the ACU belonging to Mr. Farmsletia also exploded. As it is GG. GG well played for the top team. Even though they actually made a quite nasty base swap, but well, they had Feather in the team, so I didn't expect nothing less disgusting. So yep, GG well played and see ya next time.